I'm so excited. Well, first off, welcome to the smoking section. Yeah, everybody who's
Thank
gonna
you.
watch and is watching. Yes, this is Miss Lauren White. Um, yeah, I'm so excited because I really had never used Threads before, and I put out a post on Threads, and you reached out, and then we did some communicating. Had to get some times right because we're a few hours away, I would say. But thank you for being on the show. I
You're
really do
very
appreciate
welcome. Yeah, of course. I feel like, I'm trying to put myself out there as much as I can to inspire people for change and looking at, kind of like my life and kind of what I've been through and trying to help as many people as I can. So, when people say that they've got podcasts, I'm like, yeah, it's such a good match when, there's an alignment around you doing what you're doing and me doing what I'm doing. So it just makes sense, pretty much.
it. Yeah, and I think it's a really fun way too for people to have like deeper conversations, a little more expanded. You know what I mean? Not the 20 minutes, 30 minutes that you generally see like on a TV show, some kind of
Mm-hmm.
like news channel or something. Um, but like you kind of already went ahead and started us off. You know, you work as a motivational speaker, right?
Yeah, that's my job. Yeah,
How do you get started? How does that come about? Like
yeah.
what was the
Everyone asks
day where
that.
you said I'm going to be a motivational speaker? How does that begin?
Yeah, no, it came about when I, growing up, had a lot of self-esteem issues and trauma that led me to some very dark places. So, my main thing was drinking a lot, using a lot of drugs and food. So, bulimia was my story. And then getting into rehab at 18 years old and getting sober. So, I'm around nearly 12 years sober. And from that, I kind of got introduced to Amy Winehouse's parents, who had this
Wow.
thing called the Amy Winehouse Foundation. And, they related to my story, I related to them, and they were like, do you want to go into school and do talks? And then since then, I've done it as a job pretty much. Um, and I do it for companies, I do it for brands, I do it online. I have one to one clients that I work with. I'm an addictions counsellor, so I help people battle addiction. I do online workshops. Obviously, the fact that I'm currently living in Bali is much harder for me to do face to face stuff, but at the moment, like everything I'm doing is online. But when I go back to the UK, I do face to face festivals,
Wow.
events, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's my passion in life to, help people get out of what I got out of. So when I do help people, it helps me pretty much.
So I guess we can get real deep on this one off bat. I was an addict for a while, and I still remember the moment when I was like, this has gotta change. Like, do you remember? Like, was there like a hard line moment, or was it just something you just like slowly separated yourself from?
Yeah, I mean, like my rock bottom wasn't like physical, like I was in hospital dying. Mine was more of a emotional rock bottom.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how progressive the illness was within addiction. So, when I picked up substances to change the way I felt when I was 12, the ones I said I'd never do, by the age of 15, and I was doing things that were even worse. And then by the age of 18, it got even worse. And then it was a catastrophic experience of a lot of things together. But I witnessed my younger brother go through cancer, which really affected me. And that was almost like my fuck it button, right? It was like, oh, well, if you have my problems, you do things that I would do. So I kind of went off on running. And I just remember I was drinking a lot. I was making myself throw up every day. I was in a controlling
Yeah.
relationship. I was doing drugs that I said I'd never do. And then I basically got to the point where I was 18 years old. I'm making myself dizzy all the time, hated my life, couldn't look at myself in the mirror, turned around to my parents and I said, I need help. And then they put me into a rehab for 4 months.
Hmm.
And that was a game changer for me.
That was the moment getting checked in there and doing all that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a like I used to not like the statement of like once an addict, always an addict. Like I used to not like that, but
Yeah.
it does it does mean more to me now that I've gotten older and it's been a longer time. It's like
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Like those lessons, like it's rough. It's rough going through that
Hmm.
type of stuff.
I mean, I think that, they do believe that addiction is a brain disease. They do believe that you could be born an addict. They do
Mm,
believe that you can, pick up one addiction from the other. And I do generally fully believe that I do have a very addictive personality. And, just because I don't do drinking drugs doesn't mean that I don't pick up other substances to change where I feel to cope. Um,
mhm,
so, I mean, everyone's different, right? Like different things at different times. When I went straight into recovery and I got sober, like, you know, in recovery, they say you need to identify yourself as an alcoholic, as an addict. Like it's who you are as a person. And then, nearly 12 years sober, later on, I'm like, well, that doesn't really define me as a person. I don't have
yeah.
to constantly call myself an alcoholic or an addict, but I do know that I have a very addictive personality. You
Mm,
know, I think when we label ourselves something, we almost become that.
mhm,
I don't necessarily know that's a healthy thing, but it's also the flip side of it is it does help us become familiar and it helps us kind of understand who we are and our awareness of what we're doing, right? So at that time when I was sober and I was 18 years old, I needed to call myself an alcoholic because then I need to become more aware of what was going on in my life. 12
mm,
years later, I'm kind of like, I don't think I'm ever cured or recovered. I need to always say that I'm recovering, but I don't need to walk into a room and say I'm an alcoholic all the time. Do you get
mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah, well, I like to make the joke with my friends when they do offer me like a drink or whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm a recovering alcoholic, guys. Like, relax. Like, stop it. Like, stop. Um,
Do whatever you need to do. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? To say,
it's a cool, it's just a cool like little Josh around,
yeah,
but I do always I try to remind myself like on a pretty consistent basis, like, dude, like I could just slip right back into that addiction just as easy as this person can slip into a like an addiction, um,
yeah,
whether it's your first time or the I always say it's whether it's your first time or your hundredth time, it's really easy to get into it.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I don't really subject myself to one thing, right? Like, I could
Mhm,
sit here and say that I was an alcoholic, but at the end of the day, like, I generally feel like I could pick up anything to change where I felt. And if it wasn't alcohol, it was work. Work was a huge one for me. I'd experienced burnout a few times through work addiction. And it all stemmed from, how to not feel reality, and how
mhm,
to deal with a problem because that became my solution. So, having awareness, I always say to everyone, is so key. And having the ability to slow down and stop at any time and just kind of like, ask yourself what you need. Because I thought that what I needed was drugs and alcohol and food to change where I felt to deal with the problem. When
mhm,
actually I realized that actually that wasn't helping the problem, it was actually making the problem worse.
mhm. Oh my God, that's just even like hearing you say it, like so much of it is so relatable because I feel like, I've had my ins and outs and I think addiction hit me real hard around
Yeah.
like 17, 18 years old. So it's like by the time you're like clearing up, in my life, I was like starting to really hunker down and start to get into it.
I think that's what happens a lot, actually, to be honest. Like, a lot of people, they get to 18, 19 years old and they're like, well, I'm not that bad. I actually, in next week, I'm going to be in a magazine, that is kind of like Lad Bible, and it's just talking about how we find signs of addiction. And one of the signs was, you know, you don't need to be a whiskey drinking a park bench to have a problem with alcohol. And there's a lot of functioning alcoholics out there and people that actually just use it to cope with life or just to, fill a void. But at the end of the day, like, you need to ask yourself many questions like, how does it make you feel? Does it make you feel good? Is it, giving you the best possible version of yourself that you can be? Are you waking up the next day feeling amazing about yourself? Most of the time you're not. So it's just those things of like what actually you want out of your life. Like, do you want to actually just like constantly be not experiencing life and just drunk all the time, or do you actually want to like, experience life for what it is? And that's why like, I love my life now because I'm actually experiencing life. And
Mhm.
most of my using, I was in my room, or ending up so drunk that I couldn't even end up at the party. you know.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
so it's an interesting one because at the age of 18, not many people do get sober because they justify it. They're like, well, I wasn't that bad, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't that bad. I had friends that were way worse than me, but I was able to identify a problem that could have been a problem even more.
Yeah, I've never even taken a second to look at it that way. Like, and there was a lot of like, at 18, I'm like, well, I know guys who are way worse off than me. Like, what I mean? Or I know guys who are way like, at least I got a job type of, and I used whatever I did. Wow, I never thought of. Did you go to school for any of this? Matter of fact, now that I think of it.
Did I go to school?
Yes, like, is there any like, is this just like all like street knowledge, or did you go to school like for like psychology or sociology, anything like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I did an addiction counselling course, pretty
Oh
much to
wow.
understand addiction. Um,
Mm,
and then I did an NLP practitioner course and a life coaching qualification. But I by the age of 18, before I started working for the foundation, I basically started learning about facts around alcohol and drugs, which
mm,
I found really fascinating. Like I was going into private schools and doing talks and helping these kids understand what they're putting in their body, right?
mhm,
I'm just so passionate about understanding the way our brains work and why we pick up things the way we feel like the reason we pick up drugs is because of our reward systems, right? Like because actually like somewhere along the lines it actually makes us feel good because of dopamine. It gives us that high. um,
mhm,
but because of the components that's in the alcohol, it actually it screws up our brain to the point where we have no inhibitions to actually want to stop. um,
mm,
and the drugs are too stronger than the actual reward system that actually gives us that inability to feel that moralistic compass. So we get to that point by the end where we're like, actually, you know, is this good for me? But the more we do it, the more our self-esteem and self-worth goes down. The more we do it, the more addicted we are to it, and the more it makes us feel good. And then we also have something called the blind spot, which is we forget how bad it actually is. You only remember the good times. So when I used to drink and do drugs, and when I used to binge and purge, I'd actually forget about the end result of how it made me feel, the shame and the guilt. I'd always go back to the beginning, which actually was the times that actually worked for me. It worked for a period of time. Like, do you relate to
oh
that?
my god, oh my god, like, and the way you're just saying it is like, I don't want to ever touch one ever again. Like, it just like binge and purge. That was like, that's just such a combo of words. Like, the word choice on that is crazy. Yeah, binging and just like to really think too, sometimes it was like, yeah, there was this reward system, and then the more I did it, it was like the more friends I had. And I even remember thinking at points too, it's like, well, if I quit smoking weed, then these guys are going to quit coming over, and then I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
lose friends, and then so no, I'm gonna keep up, like, just a little. I'll just smoke just a little bit, or I'll just drink just a little bit. And I think especially like for myself, it was bad because I was a connoisseur. Like, you know what I mean? I smoked and drank, and I was really in like the party scene. Like, so like when I really started to like clean up and stuff, I do kind of see how I felt that, where like my self-esteem, I had to work on it from a different angle, you know?
Did you feel like you lost a lot of friends?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Even to this
Yeah.
day, like, I still say those were my old drinking buddies. They weren't my
Yeah.
friends because my friends are still around, you know.
Mm,
Um, but no, 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 no. Yeah, no, I lost a lot. I would say I lost a lot of friends, even just from they got into harder stuff, like they got into some weird stuff, and I was just like, no, I'm not. And they just went that route. And a lot of them, you lose contact, like, addicts, you lose contact with them, and next thing they're just in the wind. Uh,
yeah, yeah, and it's mad because like a lot of, especially in the UK, a lot of socializing is around drinking,
hmm,
and like a lot of um, relationships are around partying.
yeah.
And it's hard to find people that actually don't do that. I do think it's becoming more common, but when I got sober, I did have to I had amazing friends. I really did, but a lot of my friends, they were doing a lot of drugs. You know, and I had to distance myself because
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I had to really kind of start to put in boundaries and realize what was making me feel good. Some people didn't get it. They didn't get it because like their whole thing was like, well, you could have carried on. You
Yeah.
weren't doing heroin. That was the comments that I would get. Like, you're only 18 years old. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. So you think that I should carry it on and die? Do you think I should play with fire and just carry on and see whether I'm going to, end up doing heroin?
And at
Like,
18 years old too, I look back and I'm like, dude, I didn't know what the hell I was doing with life back then. That's insane.
yeah, it was young. It was young. I was very lucky enough to have two family members that went and got sober very young. And they're now my influences, pretty much. And I kind of, got to the point where I saw what they had, and they were like inspirations to me, and they had this like happiness, and I
Mm,
wasn't happy, and I was like, I want that, and that's what sobriety gave me. It gave me true happiness and contentment, and the ability to really kind of wake up and be who I want to be, right? Because a substance never made me be who I want to be because it wasn't me,
mhm.
it was
God,
something
that's so
else.
true.
Yeah,
That's so crazy. Like, and I really haven't had like a talk with someone, especially like, once we got in contact about set up the podcast, I looked through some of your stuff and I was like, wow, like she specializes with addiction. Like, this is cool. Like, you see so many. I feel like Instagram and Twitter and all these spaces kind of got flooded with the motivational speaker.
yeah,
I'm gonna get
yeah.
you to make $250 million in 18 days. Um, but not
I don't care
something
about money. I'm not driven by money. I'm driven by helping people. So
about
I'm not really a
addiction. So
yeah,
something, yeah, to bring health and because
yeah,
health is wealth. And
100%.
and it's cool. It's cool it's really cool to hear like just listening to your story and it's kind of like you're like, do you relate? I'm like, yeah, actually I've never related more to like hearing some of this stuff.
And what
um
and to throw back to you, like, what have you learned through change, like you doing what you were doing, right? Like, what do you look back and see what you were like, and then what we've got back now?
my coming to moment I still think of a lot is because I was sitting around a group of people and I remember we had been partying all night and for whatever reason I just had a really like sober moment. Like I just like was just clear head and I'm looking around and I'm like, this can't be life. Like this can't be what it's all going to be for me. Like there's just no way. Like we're in my dad's garage right now. Like they're like, no, thank you. And I think of that a lot. Like
Yeah.
the people who I'm directly associated with on a consistent basis. Um, like I try to make sure that those are people I can look around and be like, okay, this is good. Like this is good for me. Like these people make me feel good. I'm healthy. I'm not, all out of my brain. Um, and the the biggest thing, and I have kids, and so the biggest thing that I think I've taken away from it is I want I want my kids to know that like they don't need anything to enhance life. Like, and so as a dad, I want to give them such a good life that they don't need enhancements to take it to whatever level they like their buddies is telling them, high off life. Be high off life, bro. Like,
100%.
um,
And that's the thing, right? Like, I do look at people around me that unfortunately, didn't get it young, and then
mm,
they get to like 30, 40 years old, and then they have responsibilities. And responsibilities are, they've got a partner, and then they've got kids, and there's people involved, right? And
mhm,
that's when it's a problem. And because people start to identify that other people are, really, really, really getting affected by this. Um, And why don't you stop before that gets bad, right? Because then
Mm-hmm.
now I look at, what type of, because I don't have kids, but, I eventually will have. And I look at what type of mother I want to be. And when I look at my kids, I want to be able to nurture them and care for them. And, I have a very good relationship with my mother. She's like my best friend, but, she's now 11 years sober and growing up. You know, I didn't really have a good relationship with her because she was drinking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of, felt that, you know, that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying she's a bad person because I know that addiction and alcoholism is not. I split the two up, right? There's my mum, and then there's the drinking, and the
Mm-hmm.
drinking takes over. And I really get that, right? Because I get that for myself. Like, the amount of times I woke up the next day and was like, I don't want to do this again, and then I kept on doing it. No one in my right mind would stop me. So if there were family and members involved and friends involved, like, it doesn't matter. So I don't think that my mum was a
Mm-hmm.
bad person, but I do think that, like, if anyone's listening to this right now, like, if you know are going to get to that place of having responsibilities like a partner and kids, it's better to not do that so that you can save a whole life of pain for not just you but people around you.
Wow. And like the whole statement of like separating the person from the addiction because the addiction takes over.
It does, yeah.
And there's just been so many people like, and that I love dearly. It's like you watch them, they get sober and then they fall off the rocker and they're kind of in the middle of it and you see them when they're sober and then you see them when they're high or drunk or whatever and it's just like, ooh, I got to remember like there's you and then there's high and I got to that's a just to hear that is it's a good reminder because we always deal with people no matter what, no matter how old we get or how long we're in our own sobriety, we're always going to stumble across people who are in their own fights, and their own battles.
Yeah.
And so Young got sober, did the whole nine with a rehab recovery, started working with the foundation. How how do you think like life has really been influenced and I mean obviously it's given you these different opportunities and all these wonderful things, but as far as like your own personal growth with your recovery and your sobriety and all these things, what credits or what effect has the foundation and working with them had on your life?
I mean, it introduced me to sharing my story, right? And it introduced me to not having shame around
Mm,
any issue that I have in my life. And I genuinely believe all of us have a story and a journey to tell. And a lot of us, we're scared to share it. Like, it was easy for me to say that I had a problem with addiction, right? It was very hard for me to say that I was a bulimic or, I suffered with depression, anxiety, and self sabotaging behaviors, like self harm, because I was a very naturally, happy go lucky person on the outside. And, when I started going into schools, I realized that actually, there was kids that needed to hear my story because people compare each other and people look at each other's lives and they think that they've got it all figured out and that they're perfect. Do you know what I mean? And it's absolute bullshit. Like, everyone struggles, everyone has bad days. Instagram is absolute crap.
yeah.
Everyone's putting, the best version of themselves on that place. Same on, dating apps. You're going to show to the person that you're putting the best possible self version of yourself, and that's why it's just so important to just kind of educate these young kids. I think the younger generation, you know, they are in it. They're really stuck in it. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 31, right? So I watch the younger generation, and it's full of like a lot of confusion. I think. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are really kind of open and more open than my generation, where, like, there's people that are coming out as gay or transgender and being honest about who they are as individuals. But then the flip side is I think there's a lot of you know TikTok and social media and people constantly comparing themselves. And I think that my whole thing is just educating people that the most successful people could be the most unhappy people, or
Mhm.
people can be married and still not in a good relationship, or you know just because you don't have a kid doesn't mean you can't be happy, or the
Mhm.
next person that may have more money than you isn't just as content as you. And that's something that I'm really inspiring for, is like, I'm not driven by money and success. And I had money and success, it didn't make me happy, it was the opposite, it made me really kind of depressed. I'm driven by being content and being okay with just being me, and just being, okay with what truly makes me happy. Like going and being around 15 million people on a table, which I did because I worked in nightclubs for 8 years, didn't make me happy, rather than, going for a run with someone that I truly connect with.
Mhm.
So I think people need to realize that there's more to life than all of that. Um, and that just started my journey of kind of like self acceptance. I got offered a job when I was 21, moved to Hong Kong for 3.5 years, started going into private schools out there. It was amazing because a lot of these private schools were like international schools. In the Asian culture, people don't talk about feelings; it's a taboo. So there's a lot of high rates of suicide. So I felt quite like passionate going into those schools and talking about addiction there and substance abuse there and stuff there. And it's worldwide, it's not just you know here. But I feel there's a lot of pressure, and because there's a lot of pressure to fit in, there's a lot of pressure to get a good job, buy a house, keep up with the facade. I know LA is probably the same as London, right? Like, you need
Oh
to make
yeah.
money in order to live. And I
Yeah.
think that people are trying to cope with life, and that's the thing. Like, it's easier to run away from the problem than deal with the problem.
Yeah, and the yeah, I turned 32 in November, and 90s kids
Nannies,
here,
babies.
yeah, us 90s kids here in America, for sure, I feel like are definitely on a different time, right? Like a definitely on a different wave than I see, especially with like the youngsters, and especially like social media wise. Um I feel like there is a slow progression though, where it's kind of like if people really don't like get it in check, that so much of their identity, like so much of their whatever, like is going to be wrapped up in this, like whether it's their esteem, their identity, just their whole livelihood. Like if people are having 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours of screen time on a phone, I think to me, that's a problem, and it's the same thing. Like when I go to the gym in the morning, I get a quick workout. And if I go back at night and I see the same guy running on the treadmill, it's like, bro, I think you're running from something. Like, I think there's probably problems at home or something that we need to address, bro. Like,
Yeah,
unless you're a marathon runner. But to me, I feel like, especially in my age now and like dealing with so many people, like the podcast started off as like mental health awareness. It started during COVID. Um, and unfortunately, during COVID, I had a couple friends commit suicide.
well,
Uh,
I'm so sorry.
thank you, but it did really inspire me to say, let me just talk with people from time to time, and let people know like their stories are important, right? Which I think is cool because like especially for you, which I think is so cool, like you get to talk to people on wide webs, like like the wide web, and talk about something that's important, like addiction, like what I mean, and things like letting them know that who they are exists outside of this thing. Like you said earlier, there's the addiction, and then there's the person. Like you exist outside of this thing. This is just a thing that's
Yeah,
hurting you, it's,
yeah,
oh my god. um
yeah. And that's the passion, right? To educate people around the addiction but also educate people around the identity side, where the more you are the addiction, the more it becomes your identity. Um,
Mhm.
like it's a part of you. Like it's your habit, it's your cycle, it's your daily routine, and that's another thing. Like if it becomes your daily routine, it's like who am I without it? And I've definitely heard clients and I've heard people that are around me that say they're scared to not do it anymore because they're scared of what they're going to be without the addiction.
Oof.
And that's mad, right? It's like something
Mhm.
that's harming them so much is
Mhm.
also helping them in some way. And it's a really weird thing to come about because, like, I shared this the other day. Like, there was a period where, like, because of what was going on around me, my mom was ill, my brother was ill, there was a lot of stuff going on. My home life wasn't great, my school life wasn't great. It became my best friend. Like, it really became my best friend. In dark times, drinking and drugs and food and like anything. Exercise is definitely one of them. I have to be honest. Like I was an exercise addict. It
Mhm.
was my best friend, and
Mhm.
it didn't judge me. It never said no. It never was like no, Lauren. I took it, and when times got hard at home, I isolated and drank, or I isolated and ate loads of food, and you know, and then when you stop, you know, you actually like, oh my god, I because it's been so long, I can't remember what the feeling like was when I did it, but I
Mhm.
just remember not understanding and it being in my vocabulary that I generally I was convinced. I remember I turned around to my mum and I was like, I think that this is who I am, and this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Like I actually convinced myself that that was my end goal. Like I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't know what not doing it was
Mhm.
until I stopped, and then until I stopped doing it, and now I don't know what doing it what is. Oh my god, I'm literally like I've got friends that are like, oh yeah, like margarita, and I'm like I don't even know what margarita tastes like anymore. I've never, like, do you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like,
yeah.
but also like to be able to, and this is what I like to say to people, like to be able to have the ability to really kind of say I deserve better and stand up and stand up to your own self worth and go, I don't need to suffer anymore is one of the most, I would say, incredible things you could ever do for yourself. Like, because I've battled addiction or I've battled, like, something that I've done for most of my teenage years, I feel like I can battle anything, you know?
Honestly, because even like kids born into addiction, right? And I argue with some of my buddies with it, where they're like, no one's born an addict, and I'm like, dude, there's literally kids born addicted to crack cocaine, like quite literally, um, or even nicotine in their blood, right? And I think those are a very, very unique type of people because there's a weird technicality where it's like, okay, they're born an addict, which sucks, but they go an X amount of years without doing it, then potentially having their first taste of it, which is technically a relapse to something
Yeah.
that was instilled to them in the womb. And so now they have all these different things going on. And to that, to me, is a very, I think those are some of the strongest type of people I think that walk the earth are the people who were not only born addicted to it, but end up addicted to it later and then overcome it for a second time because they're going through it in different ways. I don't know. It's just like it's a real weird wave that I feel. And I think I think for people who are born addicted to stuff or even who have addictions, period, like you're saying, like when you let them realize their value. Like you were a baby once, fam. You're somebody's baby. Like, and you're just going through something, and we can get you right. Like, we can get you to where you need to be, but you got to remember who you are. Like like you said it earlier. You're not this thing. Like this is, the monkey on the back or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And God,
Mm.
I know I've always heard because I got some buddies. Like I'm a dancer as well, And
Oh, sick.
yeah, and I have a lot of dance friends who live in London, and they always tell me about the nightlife out there. And they're like, "Dude, you got to
It's
come out here."
mad. It's
Oh my
mad.
lord,
It's mad. Yeah.
it's mad. Yeah, that's what they say. It's mad,
Yeah.
bruh. You got to come out here.
I love that. Yeah,
All right.
I mean, yeah, I've had a weird relationship with nightlife because I started working in clubs when I was 16 years old, and originally it was like I was working for Abercrombie and Hollister, random as hell, and I was going to these like model parties, and this like promoter turned around to me and was like, "Do you want to make some money?" I was like 15. I was like, obviously. And he was like, do you want alcohol for free? And I was like, obviously. And he goes, all you need to do is bring hot girls onto the table and you get paid. And I
Ooh.
was like, okay, so I get paid to get paralytic and drunk and I get free entry into clubs. Why would I not say no? But that was the start. But that was the start of my love of alcohol. And on the
Mm,
outside, like I was living this champagne life, and everyone was like, "You're sick! Like you're so cool! Like Lauren's getting everyone into these clubs and pouring drinks to people." But really, I was just drinking and drinking and drinking,
mm,
and yeah, and the flip side of it, obviously, it developed me an eating disorder because I had to stay skinny because I had to stay in these clubs to look good. So
mm.
it was just that champagne lifestyle that kind of was very hard to you know be around because on the outside, everyone thinks you have this most amazing life, and on the inside, you don't.
Champagne lifestyle. I've never heard it called that. Now, there was a stint where I was living in an area called of Florida called Key West.
I know Key
And
West.
okay,
I've been to Florida. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I lived in Key West for some time, and I was there for
Wait,
work.
isn't Key West quite hillbilly?
N- Kind of. It's like got these
Okay, mate.
hillbilly, like it's hillbilly meets Islander smash mouth in the middle. Because
Yeah.
you'll find dudes who are talking with a super country accent, but you take 20 steps that way and you're looking out into the ocean. And I'm like, this is like
Uh,
the whole place doesn't make sense. It
yeah.
doesn't make sense at all. But these, we would meet, but it's almost like Las Vegas to me, right on an island. You got all these bars. It's a nightlife city,
Yeah, I
and
remember I went to a bar that had like a. Have you been to that bar that has like the dollars everywhere?
oh yeah, all on the walls and stuff, taped up on the
Yeah,
walls
yeah,
all over. Yes, yes, that place was awesome. Oh, God, I can't
yeah,
remember it to save the life of me.
yeah. But
Um,
that was where I went. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, well, we met some of the bartenders and stuff there, and we would talk to them, and they're just like, we feel. Some of them would say that they feel like they live like almost like a double life because on one second they're just there, nightlife, celebrities coming through, yacht parties coming through. They're serving all these drinks, boom, 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 boom. But during the day,
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody completely different. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it,
I mean, if I'm totally honest, Miami, I had a very, very weird relationship with Miami.
yeah,
I
Miami is crazy.
yeah, yeah. My last proper blowout was in Miami.
Wow,
Yeah,
proper.
yeah. I mean, I was in oh, it's wild. Like I was in the Fontainebleau. I was staying at the Fontainebleau with my family, and I literally thought I was living the dream because I was like, I got into like a penthouse suite with all these celebrities, and then I ended up going on a table with like I think David Guetta was performing, and it was mad. It was mad, but I just remember like being paralytically drunk and like going back to my room and just drinking and doing like yeah, it was just wild. Like that's the thing. Like I chase that life,
Mm-hmm.
and when you chase that life, like everyone's doing it, right?
Right. So
And
what's
like
one more shot? Right? Everyone's doing it. That easy.
and also it's hard because of everyone's doing it. You're like, I need to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's weird if you don't do it.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's like this weird, that's almost this weird loop, that I always tell, like I tell myself when I find myself near it, it's like, bro, that's the loop we're about to get into. If I take one, then it's like, hey, motherfucker, take two. And then it's like, then I take six. And then now I'm 7, 8 deep, and
That's the awareness that you have, though, right? Like when
yeah.
you're away from a substance for so long, you kind of do have the loop because you're able to step back and go, oh shit, like how did it make me feel afterwards? And when I
Mm-hmm.
remind myself how it makes me feel afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you start to realize it doesn't, it never made me feel good. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, it's always good in the moment. I feel like I get that. And especially like if there's ever an addict who listens, I get it. It feels good in the moment, but I swear in the morning it's gonna suck. So just think about tomorrow morning. Like just think about tomorrow morning. It's gonna fucking blow. Um, listen, Lauren, I don't want to keep you too long, but there is a little game I like to play.
I love it. Do it.
Um, it's just like some rapid fire questions, right?
Do it.
Nice, simple, but also a little random. So, yeah. So first, favorite movie genre.
100% thriller.
favorite
Hundred
vac
percent.
favorite
Hey,
vacay location.
oh my god. Oh my god. That's oh, I don't know. Oh my god. Shit. That changes so much. It has to be. It has to be Miami or New York. I do
Oh,
still love America. I do still love America, but then again, I really, really, really like Lisbon and Barcelona.
hmm. Oh, Miami and New York. Oh my God. I'm gonna hold on to that one because I've been wanting to go to Miami. I've been wanting to go back to Miami. I went for a football game not too long ago.
I love Miami.
Oh, that's so cool. Favorite music genre?
100% house.
House music. Favorite DJ?
Fuck, that's so hard. Um, oh my god, Steve Aoki.
Ooh,
Fun, fun
OG.
fact. Fun fact: a girl that I know that I'm friends with just got married to him.
Wow. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Aoki.
Yep,
Coffee or tea?
coffee any day. Even though I'm British,
I know that's actually surprising.
it's very
Uh,
surprising.
dance or people watch?
Dance always.
Sing or play the music?
Play. I can't sing. It's shit.
Are you taking mountains or the beach?
Oh my god, mountains always. I love the beach, but not. Like, I'd hike up a mountain any day.
Explore the depths of the ocean or explore space?
Anyone has to explore space.
Here we go.
I mean, I live on the ocean, so I have so much of it. If you found me in the UK, if we did this in the UK, I'd be like ocean, ocean. But now I'm always by the ocean space. We want what we don't have.
Always, right? Worst thing about the human nature.
Yeah.
Worst piece of advice.
Oh my god, my worst piece of advice, and I hate this so much. And please, honestly, if anyone says this to you, sleep is for the weak.
Mm,
No, like,
hmm.
oh, I hate that stuff.
Because the rest we're I'll make sure to touch on that one here in a second. But the best piece of advice you've ever gotten.
There's no rush. There's no rush. There's no. You need to figure everything now. There's no, and there's also no pressure. It's your life. That's my biggest motto. You've got
That's
to live your own life. There's no like you need to do this by a certain age. Like you can live whatever life you want to live, as long as you're not killing anyone.
absolutely. Oh, what is last one? Best advice you could give everyone who's going to watch and listen.
Really, just take a step back and kind of ask yourself if you're in a good place and whether things you're doing right now are serving you. It doesn't get any better; it only gets worse. So if there's something that you feel that is not working for you right now, then definitely do something about it because it's progressive. I'm living proof of someone that realised how progressive an illness gets, like addiction. And until I actually did something about it, I wasn't going to stop, and it was probably going to get worse.
Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show. I
Thank
do
you.
truly appreciate it. I had so many questions still left. Um, I hope we can do this again someday. But thank you so much for coming on here and
You're
opening
very
up and
welcome.
talking about your addiction and talking about your
Thank
work a
you.
little bit with us.
Of course, it's been amazing, honestly.
Thank you so much. Hey, I'll send you a message, yeah. But until next time, okay?
Bye bye. See you
Later.
later.
You guys, Lauren White, yes, motivational speaker, um, addiction specialist, I guess you could say. That was fucking really cool. I had been really looking forward to that podcast. Um, wow, I'm blown. Um, that was cool as hell. Anybody like, and I just think it's because addiction is really like close to me. And it was something that I dealt with. Um, and I just hope anybody who listens and anybody who hears the things that she had to say, I hope that you guys can take some value from it. Yeah. But until next time, I hope you guys have a good day, week, month, year in life. Until next time. Bang. Stay motivated out there.